Hey guys, how's it going? Let's talk Excel 7. Where is it? Okay, sorry about that. So let's take a look at what we got here. So this table should look familiar. We've worked on this in class. You're doing the starting balance of 3,000. Looks like you have an APR of 29.99% and a minimum payment of 3%. So you're going to work through the table. At the end, you're going to add up all of the finance charges and all the minimum payments. Now let me just kind of go back through how that works. I'm going to do a copy and paste here. This is on a new sheet, so you can just get an idea of the calculations that you would do. So month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4. If my starting balance is $5,000, my finance charge, let's say that I have, I'll put my information over here, APR, let's say it's 18.24%, and let's say my minimum payment is 5%. So how do I calculate the finance charge? Well, we know that the finance charge, we take the APR, we divide it by 12, and then we multiply by how much we owe. Right? So again, with Excel, and every time you do a calculation, you start with equals. We could do 5,000 times my APR, which is 0.1824, and I'll divide it by 12. Okay, so you notice that I changed my percentage into a decimal there. All right. Now, this wasn't done exactly correctly because you notice that this is all written out with numbers, and I want to use cell references. So where does the cell reference go? Well, you notice that the 5,000 here is referencing this. So I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to use B2. Okay. New balance, I just take the sum of these two things. I don't need to use the sum formula because it's such a small set of things I'm adding together that it's just as easy to write B2 plus C2. Okay, and then the minimum payment is 5% of that. So how do I take 5% of something? Easiest and most direct way to do it is to do a direct translation, right, where you take 5% of 5,076 and you translate it into 0.05 of his times and 5,076. Now, I'm going to, of course, use a cell reference. Instead of saying 5,076, I'm going to say D2. Right? Now, the beauty of using the cell references is that I'm going to be able to use the autofill, which is going to make this go real fast. Now, the starting balance for the next month is the new balance, and I'm taking away the payment because I want to make that payment to reduce my balance. Right? Now I can kind of go forward here. I can do a new finance charge, a new balance, and a new minimum payment. Now notice I'm getting a lot of decimals here, so I remember, yeah, this is money. Excel change this all into money, do the rounding for me. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, so now that I've done it and I've got the full row, I can actually autofill all 4 rows at once, which is pretty cool. Now, I don't know if you noticed what happened there, but I grabbed it and the cursor wasn't the right thing. Remember, the cursor can be 3 different things. This is select, this is move, and this is autofill. Autofill is what I want. So bottom right corner, left click, drag it down, and I got everything I need. Boom. Right? If I want the sum of all those things, then I use sum. If I want the sum of all those things, then I use sum there. Okay, now that's kind of the nuts and bolts for how you do the first page. If you look at the instructions, it says on sheet 2, create a similar table but make larger minimum payments. You choose the amount. All right, now let's use the power of the computer here because I don't need to, go over to sheet 2 and start from a blank where I'm like, okay, I got the month. Wait a minute, what's the next column here? Okay, I got the starting balance. This is not thinking about the power of computers. What I should do is I should take this whole thing and I should copy and paste it over into this. I may have to expand the columns a little bit. Remember how to do that. You go in between the cells and you drag or you double click to auto size. And the really awesome thing is, I did it from a blank table, but if you have all your numbers filled in here, that means you've got all your formulas in here. And all you're changing is your minimum payments. So your minimum payments are going to go up because that's what the instruction says, right? Make larger minimum payments. You could do a percentage, something higher than 3%. You could do a hard number. Say, I'm going to pay $200 a month. Okay. Now let's continue on because I want to help you a little bit with the summary question. So here's my example, the minimum payment of 5%. Here's my example copied and pasted. Now I'm deciding I want to make larger minimum payments. So I'm going to try to do $300 a month, come hell or high water. So I'm changing all of these to 300. Okay. So then the question that I'm asking in the summary question, which again, these are practice for projects and critical thinking about what happens in these situations. Compare the two scenarios laid out in sheet 1 and sheet 2. In sheet 1, the minimum payment was made. In sheet 2, you picked a different amount, which was larger. Compare using quantitative reasoning. Okay, so I'm challenging you to say, what's the difference between these two things? Now, I've got a big hint for you about a comparison that's very meaningful. For both scenarios, be sure to include the ratio of total paid to total paid in finance charges to total paid, expressed as a percentage. Okay, so what I mean is you're going to have your sum here. Okay, I'm going to just get these all done. All right, so first of all, one thing to notice is that if I was using quantitative reasoning and I just compared the finance charge, I didn't save myself very much money because in the first scenario it cost me $288, but in the second scenario it cost me $283. So you might say to yourself, well, why did I do all that extra work to pay $300 a month? But what you want to compare is the ratio, so we're using ratios here, of the total paid in finance charges to the total paid. So if you take the total paid here divided by the total paid, that's all my payments together, that gives me 0.299, and if turn it into a percentage, we're talking about roughly 30%, right? If I give myself an extra decimal, it's 29.9%. So in other words, 29.9% of my payments went to finance charges, right, in the first scenario. In the second scenario, I'm going to do the same ratio. I'm going to take my finance charge and divide it by my total payments. Okay, and so I can copy that sentence because that's the same thing. I'm going to change this to a percentage, give myself another decimal, and now I have a different statement, right? So these are two statements that involve numbers. So that's quantitative reasoning. You can use a difference if you want. You can use absolute relative change to compare these two, or you can just state them outright. In the first scenario, almost 30% of my payments went to finance charges or fees, and in the second one, I lowered that to just 23% of my payments going to 24% going to finance charges. So your summary question is just answering that question, right? Compare the two scenarios to communicate what's happening. And depending on how aggressive you were in making the payments, right? I only increased it by $50, but compared to depending on how aggressive you were, you should see a pretty big change in the situation. Okay, that's it for section 7, Excel 7, sorry, not section 7. This is a pretty big concept, guys, so I want you to feel good about this idea about what happens if you pay the minimum payment compared to making a more aggressive payment. Because like I said, everybody in America, and that's a generalization, but a pretty safe one, has to deal with debt at some point in their life. All right, talk to you later.